Welcome to you, my virtual audience. Today, we're in Series 1 of Experience Living Purposefully into Your Very Own Story. And Series 1 has 10 experiences, each one being present to some aspect of inner awareness possibility. And today, we're looking at my story equipment. We're not just thrown out into the chasm. And for this beginning, you will need a pen and paper. And if you look at this image here of the swan reflected in the water as maybe a trigger for what might surface. And take a little moment to write, in my life, I am feeling comfortable about. When the time is right for you, you may like to look at letting surface, in my life, I am feeling hazy, confused about, not satisfied with. And lastly, in this reflection time, spend a little time saying to the more than aspect of your life and living, what you feel about these comfortable and less comfortable sensings in your life. Perhaps thank the more than aspect of your life for being existing. You and I have just made an inner reflection that engaged several aspects of our inner landscapes. We have an ability to scan massive information and then synthesize it about our personal inner landscape I'm referring to. And we have an ability to allow different parts of ourselves to provide comment. We also have an ability to make a choice for our own right order. Another ability we have is to name feelings that arise spontaneously. And we can choose to go deeper into our inner landscape for additional factors to be revealed and integrated. And as well, we can choose how we share inner information and feelings with ourselves and the more than aspect of our life. We are quite wonderfully made with many capacities. I'm giving you time now for you to note how the underpinning aspects of your inner landscape emerged in your inner reflection with the swan reflection. Perhaps the abilities I have mentioned will be expanded by your own insights. And I encourage you to speak or write what emerges as you wish. We move on to naming specific equipment now to allow this to happen. Our different selves are part of the equipment that enables us to access deeper aspects of our inner landscape. And we were actually talking about selves in that last list that I gave. Observer self, an ability to observe objectively our own patterns and behaviour. True self-sensing, an inner sense of knowing what is right for me, and intuition is part of that gifting. Becoming self, an ability to listen to different parts of myself presenting opinion. Aesthetic self, an arena for intuitive arisings and an ability to engage metaphor and imagination in inner processes. So how does that all come together? This is my take on it, that we are built with inner monitoring processors. And I call them monitoring because they are adjusting processes in our personal development. And I am naming 3 of them. Judgmental self, critical self. I'm sure you've experienced those even if you haven't named them. They seem to operate automatically. You may not have taken notice of, and you have, my 3rd one that I'm naming, which is inadequate self. There'll be more explanation about that later. Now, these selves serve a positive function. However, they can go into overdrive, and when they go into overdrive, there's a painful feeling about it, a down-pulling effect. And if there's down-pulling effect, it means they're out of balance. The proper function is out of balance. So let's talk about this part of these monitoring processes first. When the inner energy is down-putting or painful in these 3 monitoring processors, that processor function is out of balance. So let's come in a little bit closer and see what's involved. Critical self. Well, a critical self helps us organise good patterns in living. We've got many options. We can't take all the options. So the critical self, the good sense of critical, helps us organise good patterns in living. This is how it often happens though, and I'm giving an example from my life. So if I have 2 objects in my hand, and one of them is for the fridge and one of them is for the microwave, and I accidentally put one in the wrong place, the opposite way round, I'm likely to say to myself, how stupid. And in that naming, there's a down-putting energy underneath it. A more balanced response could be more mindfulness, Lucy. Hasn't got that same negative energy. And something happens. When we repeatedly tell ourselves we are something like stupid, a pattern forms that gets to squawk all the time. You're stupid, you're stupid, you're stupid, you're stupid, no matter what happens. And there's a much more down-putting power in the repeated telling than a one-off, how stupid. And so for some people, when they become aware of what critical self is for them, it's got this heavy down-pulling energy attached to it. I'm moving now to judgmental self. Our judgmental self helps us to organise boundaries in life. So, supposing that I went out, knew it was looking like rain, didn't take my umbrella, said, oh, I know it's not going to, the Weather Bureau said it wouldn't, okay? And then I got soaking wet and I got a really bad cold out of it. I'd be likely to say to myself, at the end, in the middle of the cold, Lucy, you should have more sense. And that carries, as I would say it to myself, a down-putting sense. A more balanced one would be, well, Lucy, is the weatherman always right? What about using the sign of the dark clouds? Now, in this judgmental self, should can be a sign of imbalance. You should have more sense was in my down-putting one. Means I've got an unrealistic boundary somewhere around there. Doesn't fit the reality of life. And serious out of balance of shoulds, I should do that. If you get to use that as your pattern of living, it'll lead to projecting your shoulds onto others, the government, your teacher, your parents, your friends.